Thanks for tuning in to Women Who Open Doors, a podcast dedicated to lifting the voices of incredible women in our communities who not only excel in their careers, but inspire us through their actions for others. Hi, I'm Julie Collins, owner and coach of Not Magic, and it's my honor to help share the stories of these remarkable women. So without further ado, welcome to Women Who Open Doors. Welcome to Women Who Open Doors. I'm really excited today to have a special guest with us and introduce you to her. So joining us today is Adonica Randall, who is president and what I love the title, Chief Problem Solver for Abaxent, LLC, a 20-year-old nationally certified MBE and WBE technology solutions company, and also president of Abacor, a custom workforce solutions and business process design company. With over 40 years of technical and business experience, she has specialized in the development of business startups, new services, and process improvement, with experience across a variety of industries, including healthcare, insurance, manufacturing, and construction. And she and her team have had their hands in some pretty big projects, notably Fiserv Forum and a Justin Timberlake concert we're going to talk about in a little while. And also she helped the state establish the emergency COVID-19 tent at the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds. So Adonica, thank you for joining us today at Women Who Open Doors.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, thanks. I'm super excited to have you. You know, as Hana, our producer, and I were looking at all your background and doing a little background research on you, I have to tell you that we determined you're probably one of the most humble people that we have had on the podcast, because your bio really didn't speak to all the accolades and everything that's out there floating on the internet. But what I love about that is just your humbleness and your approach to just who you are. So thank you again for joining us. But I'm curious to hear a little bit about how you got to this point.
First of all, you have to back up and you have to tell my husband that I'm humble, because he's not going to believe it. So I'm playing this part for him.
All right. Well, very good. But, you know, you had mentioned to us that starting your own business was really kind of a funny story, because you didn't want to do it. You didn't intend to do it, I think you said to us. And maybe you still don't want to do it. So tell us a little bit about that journey that you've had to get where you are today.
Well, I have probably been around a ton of people, guys, especially going to an engineering college, and probably 60% of them wanted to start their own business. And we would talk about that. And I never had any aspirations to do that. Never wanted to do it. It was, we were all happy to get out and work for major corporations. Mm-hmm. But after working for several large companies, Fortune 50 companies, mm-hmm. Myself, my boss from one of those companies, and one of the gentlemen who used to be one of my clients, we went over to and started working for some smaller companies. Yeah. And it was intentional. We were all sort of large corporate burned out, mm-hmm. wanted to go work for some small companies, help them grow. And we worked for a company called Allied Computers at the time. And the guy that ran that company, John Howman, is still one of my good friends, still a good mentor. And he even did a radio show in those days called, I think it was Ram and Rom. And it was on Saturdays. And he actually did. John's a character, very smart, very good at what he did. And one day he says, "Hey, come on, let's go to lunch." And mm-hmm. I was his vice president of sales for a couple of years. And we had done a lot of work and growth with the company and that type of thing. And he says, "Let's go to lunch." So I go to lunch and we're talking. And he says, "It's time for you to start your own company." I go, "Why would I do that?" And he's like, "Well, because you're a lot like me." He says, "You know it all, but you're very seldom wrong. And, you can be a pain in the ass when you're going down the road, just like me, and, trying to get people to do the right thing. So I think you should
Mhm.
have your own company. I said, that's crazy, John. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What are you, nuts?
I know. And he convinced me to do that. And that was right after Y2K,
Mm,
which we had all survived through. And
mhm.
he actually was my first client
Mm.
to do the work. So we went from there and we learned a lot of things on how you start a business and run a business.
What
So
did you what were some of the biggest things you learned right away that you were
uh,
maybe surprised by?
well, I've been in a lot of executive positions, but owning the place is a little bit different. You have a lot of, if you don't have a good lawyer and a good CPA, you shouldn't be in business. That's
Mhm.
probably what I
Mhm.
learned right out of the gate. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
blessed enough to have both very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because they
That's
do
cool.
the things I don't want to do. I don't,
Yeah.
a lot of legal, um, sand traps, and a
Mhm.
lot of financial things that you really should have in place, but you don't know about that.
Mhm.
I was sales managers and a salesperson and an engineer. I know those things. I don't know
Right.
the businessy stuff that is your
Yeah.
foundation on how you uh, keep a business. I would probably
Yeah.
say is the best word for it.
Mhm. Mhm. So, minority, women-owned in technology. Talk to me a little bit about that because I think you even described yourself as an odd duck.
Yeah.
But
The bad
talk
news
to me.
is since the 70s, still an odd duck. The
Yeah.
numbers, while they are increasing, they are not where they should be, considering we're more than
Mhm.
half of the population in the United States. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
I mean, when I graduated in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of women in any kind of technology to do
Mhm.
anything. And those numbers, they're not exponentially growing the way I thought they would.
Mhm.
We're still at low numbers. There's a lot of things pushing STEM now. The only difference is we've got a lot more visibility, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about what you saw even for yourself as kind of the biggest hurdles, being in that industry, being in the technology industry.
Well, I think the first thing was it was a very male dominated field.
Mhm.
And I went to a college that was very male dominated. I went to University of Missouri, which is now Missouri School of Science and Technology. Yay! Uh,
Fancy name,
it's
fancy rebrand.
well, it is a fancy rebrand, but it's more appropriate for what the school is. It's
Mhm.
University of Missouri, and everybody associates that with Mizzou. No, we're not Mizzou. That's the Big Ten
Mm.
college school. The engineers are all over where I was in the Ozarks and Raleigh,
Mm.
where there was nothing else to do. You
Okay.
engineer or go home because
Yeah.
we didn't have any other choices. Um, so I think that was the first barrier. There weren't very many minorities. There weren't any
Mhm.
minorities that I would see. I saw one, and I should have brought my little Michelle doll, and she's not in here.
Mm.
My Nichelle Nichols doll from Star Trek.
Mhm.
Um, my journey is a Star Trek journey. I'm a sci-fi fan, and even as a kid, reading comic books and all those other things. The first person I saw that looked like me was on Star Trek, and she was on the
Mm.
bridge of a spaceship. And
Mhm.
I looked at that and said, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And folks will say, well, how did you know you could do that? I said, because I saw somebody who was doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, it was television, and yes, it was sci-fi. It wasn't reality, but it was to me.
Mhm.
And you know, years later, probably about 5 years ago, I got to actually tell Nichelle Nichols that I was an engineer because of what I saw in her.
Did you really?
I met her at a convention. I love those conventions, those cons.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I got to tell her that. And I have an autograph, and I have my little
Super cool.
yeah, I have my little Hallmark figure of her
Yeah.
that sits in there
Yeah.
um, on my other desk, and that opened up a whole world. And the side note on her is that what people didn't know is she didn't want that job.
Really?
And after she got into the first couple of episodes, she was going to walk because she didn't want to do it. As a communications officer, it wasn't, as an actress, it wasn't what she wanted. She didn't see
Yeah.
where the future was going in it, and it was sci-fi, which was kind of silly to
Yeah.
most people. And the person who got her to keep that job was Dr. Martin Luther King.
Really?
He said, "You need to stay where you are because people need
Mm.
to see you."
Mhm.
Okay. And I saw her. And that was,
Yeah.
and that's been the driving force for me ever since, is there weren't any other minorities on that bridge. Now there was
Mhm.
a Russian, and there was a Vulcan, and some and some other
Right?
folks. But
Right.
sci-fi has always been one of those places where ethnicity and race and gender and that kind of stuff, it's not like reality here. It's
Mhm.
always been different. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I liked going in that direction,
Yeah.
to do that. So the barriers, I don't think I saw them as much as insurmountable barriers, because
Mhm.
most folks who were engineers, if you were a white male, you probably don't have those barriers, but being a female, I had barriers anyway. And a lot of times it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with race. It just had to do with, I'm in a female body. And men still are kind of weirded out by that, and that's okay. So, but
Yep.
I come from pretty solid stock and didn't care.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
so
I I love the story though about how you even, your gift back to Michelle was kind of full circle, right? If
yes,
she was saying like, "Why should I do this?" and for you to, be there, not knowing her story and then give her
correct.
that gift back of, it was worth it,
Yes,
right? I love that.
yeah, she did it, and not only did she do it in a fake TV show like thing, but she
Yeah.
actually worked with NASA. She actually helped recruit women and minorities into that program. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things about her that she ended up doing that you didn't know until recently.
Mhm. Mhm. When I did hear that you were a Trekkie,
Big
through
time.
some of our little big time.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that you had mentioned, because, it just kinda struck a chord with me was, really about the team culture, about what you saw in the team, on in Star Trek, I should say. So
Yes.
talk to me a little bit more about that philosophy and what you saw
No, the
there.
philosophy of the team, the first thing was everybody had a job to do.
Mhm.
That was what I got off. Like, everybody was specialized. They were good at the jobs they did. And it had no, it was irrespective of the price, of the part that they may have been Russian, or they may have been Vulcan, or they may have been
Mhm.
whatever. Everybody was doing what they were trained to do.
Mhm.
And that sort of is interesting because my business model looks exactly like that. It has nothing to do with all these other extraneous factors. It has to do with who is good at what it is they do. Because
Mhm.
somebody asked me, I said, I don't manage my staff. I'm not a manager. No,
Mhm.
they know what their job is and they do it.
Mhm.
And that was the thing that always got them out of a problem on Star Trek. Everybody knew what they were good at, and nobody ever tried to step across. Not once did I ever see anybody try to step into somebody else's role and say, oh,
Mhm.
you're the head of engineering, I'm up on the bridge, I'm going to come down and show you how to run the ship. No, nobody did that.
Mhm.
That never.
Mhm.
Oh, you're sitting at the console, Uhura, let me go over here and let me do this better than it. No, at no time was that ever done.
Yeah.
They were always a team.
Mhm.
Always a team. Even in danger, in fun, and everything. What I saw was a team, a blended team that you always won if you stayed inside of that team framework. So
Yeah.
that's sort of always been my mantra, is that we're my business, we're a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more so you can share the model that you had because you describe it on your website as kind of the general contractor. You're like the general contractor for multiple, multiple technology services. So you figure out the problem and
Yes.
then you get in the right people. So describe that a little bit more for
Well, it's
us.
interesting because I always get people who want my 30-second elevator pitch, and they say, "Well, what do you sell?" And we don't sell
Yeah.
anything. And when I
Yeah.
tell them we don't sell anything, well, how the hell are you in business? Well, we're in business because what we actually do is we work to create what to help the client figure out what solution should we be crafting. And
Mhm.
now that we have that crafted or architected or whatever you want to call it, we become a broker for whatever it is you need to pull together. And the reason we went to that model, we pivoted into that model probably in 2013. And the reason is when I got into this business, 48 years ago, um, there were a handful of technology products and companies, a handful,
Mhm.
less than 40, less than 20.
Yeah.
Okay. Years later, as we progress forward, we're now talking about 5,000, 6,000. They're global, they're all over the place. The old model, which we also had, previous to this model, is you try to, as a business, you start a business and you try to hire people with certain competencies down certain levels, right?
Mhm.
We're small. I can't afford to have a $300 an hour person sitting on my bench, but
Mhm.
neither then can IBM or anybody else. Um,
Right.
the bottom line is no one company, and IBM has always been my model of that's the epitome of what you're trying to do. If they can't afford to have 5,000 different product experts on their bench or inside of their ecosphere, now I
Mhm.
sure as hell can't afford to do it
Right.
as a
Right.
small business. So you have to have a different model. And
Yeah.
the model we have allows us what we have is a partner ecosystem. So
Mhm.
we have partners across all of North America, but those partners individually are experts at what they do.
Mhm.
So if I need a plumber, then I will pick the best plumber. Right? If I need an
Mhm.
electrician, I will pick the best electrician. So the best person with the hardware we need, or the software we need, or the architectural skills we need, or the cyber skill, whatever it is, we can go and merge that person into a virtual team that does that work.
Mhm.
And then when the work is over, they go away. That gives us the ability to have the most cost effective prices because the client's never paying for a bench. The
Right.
old bench
Right.
model is expensive,
Mhm.
and you don't always you have the talent you can afford, not the talent that the customer
Mhm.
might need. So
Mhm.
once we understood that, we said, okay, we're going to blow this whole model up, and we're not going to do that anymore. We're going
Mhm.
to pick partners who are A plus and they're good at what they do, and we will become the front end to that. Because what Abaxent has, because of the certifications and being around for a long time and the track record of the work that we've done, is we have access.
Mhm.
So we may be invited to things or asked to do things or part of something or whatever. And our role is to get in there and look at it and say, oh, okay, well, no. I understand what you're asking, but we can also bring in maybe three other options
Mhm.
for that. And you can pick from which one because we don't care what you buy. You buy what you need. So we
Mhm.
don't have any axe to grind or things to sell or no. What we have is a network of very good, solid um, deliverers who can come together and work as a team. See, we're back to that team thing. And
Mhm.
work as a team and
Mhm.
get what done that they do best. And then when
Yeah.
that's over, we dissolve out and we work on something else, and we may have a totally different team.
Yeah. Well, just, I mean, keeping pace with technology, like you said, just the number of things available to where it is today, but just even keeping pace
Oh, I
with
know, I
the
know,
changes.
I know. We will run up against people. They say, "Oh, we have an IT guy in house," and we say, Okay, let me know how that's working out for you. And it's like, yeah, so we probably got
Yeah.
about 400 of them, depending on what it is you need to do. And then we'll bring the
Yeah.
right one in because you can't expect that one person that's in house to ingest that much
Yeah.
information and that fast. I mean, just the basics of stuff going on with a standard environmental network or a standard with cyber. I mean, it's every day.
Mhm. Right.
This industry
Right.
is you got to love it or you got to get out of it because everything. I mean, the amount of stuff to read that we have to do, the
Mhm.
amount of classes that all of these vendors do, the amount of stuff they do to try to work with their end vendors to pull
Yeah.
things together. It's astronaut. I mean, it's nonstop.
Right. Right.
So
Right. You can't keep up. You
no,
can't
you
keep
can't.
up.
It's like the
Yeah.
Big Bang Theory. I mean, you have this explosion of products. So now what are we going to do
Mhm.
about that?
Mhm.
Are you going to buy
Yeah.
the one because you saw it advertised on the Super Bowl? Or are you going to buy what you need, which may not be
Mhm.
that thing that costs 10 times more than you needed to pay for it?
Yeah.
So
But what a service you provide though too to, I call it customer delight, to delight the customer
you know,
because you're saving them so much time to even just source the right people, or are they the right people? There's so much of that when you're,
right,
going across the technology in any vendor
right,
relationship, you know?
right. Are they the right people? Is that even the right product? Is that
Right.
product still the product you're going to need 3 months from now or 3 years from now? You
Right.
know, so
Right.
yeah. So we try to take all of that into account so that what we are working with the client is the best thing they have for what their reasonable
Mhm.
short-term or long-term need is. Because other than that, you're
Mhm.
constantly replacing things as well. So
Right,
that's
right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the Fiserv, right? It's one of the big projects. Nice little capstone in the in
yeah.
the world
Well,
for you.
until some current work with that was the biggest project we had ever had.
Yeah.
We were voluntold to do it. Um, we had
I
never
love the
done a
term.
construction project because everybody's like, "What? Why would you take that on?" I said, "Because we were voluntold to do it." We had a request. Luckily, Peter Fagan, who is the most awesome person on the planet, he came to town to build this stadium, and his desire and wishes was that it was a community event.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said there will be community participation, minority participation, female, whatever, everybody's going to participate in this stadium. And it was a requirement to have a in-state diverse company to assist on this project. Um, and I guess they ran into some problems trying to find that. And
Mm.
we got the phone call from our partner, Johnson Controls. Um, and up to that point, we had never done any business with them 18 years in. Now, but they knew who we were. I was on the board with one of
Sure.
some of the folks there, so we were visible. But we had never really done anything other than be on committees and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And we got a phone call that said we need you to show up at this presentation. And as they rolled the stuff out, and I didn't go. I said we don't do construction. Okay, so I didn't go. I got a second phone call that said, "Hey, this thing is going on. I really need you to go down there. Um,
Yeah.
I need you to take care of this." I, I didn't go.
You're playing hard to get,
I wasn't
Adonica.
playing hard to get. We don't do construction. It's
Yeah.
like I'm telling you,
Yep.
we don't do construction. We can't spell construction. We don't know what it is you're asking for. Why are we
Right.
going to a construction meeting to sit here for
Yeah.
construction? We're IT, right? We
Right.
come in and we do stuff and then we go away. Um, And the third phone call was more like a Liam Neeson phone call, which is you will do this or I know where you live and you know, yada yada yada. Okay,
Love it.
fine. So I share a space with one of my major vendors from a business I shut down, and I had them take over the space, and we cohabit. And I walked up the hall and to see who was in the building, and one of their salespeople were there, and I said, "Hey, Wayne, you want to come with me?" He goes, "Where are we going?" I said, "Well, we're going to Manpower because they're having this construction thing." He goes, "We don't do construction." I said, "Yeah, I keep
I
telling
know.
everybody that, but
I
nobody
know.
cares." So You're not doing anything that looks important, so get in the car. We're going over there. So he and I went, we walked out, and I said, can we do any of this? He goes, I don't know. No, we came back, we talked to a couple of the engineers, and they said, well, we can do a little bit. No, we can do this and that. And we said, okay, fine. So we can do that piece.
Yeah.
And we engaged with Johnson Controls as our, we were subcontracted to them. And we went into the stadium, and they're subcontracted to another larger contractor. And we started doing things. Well, it ended up that when you do things and you do them right, you get more work. And then you get more work. And then you get more work. And we had multiple teams of people there, and we had community people there because we were training people. The panels that are hung, we were training community folks to do some of that. My floor foreman was a female that, when I talked college, she was one of my college students, and I went and got her, and we had her down here 5 days a week in a hotel because she lived in Ripon. But she was managing the community people and the other folks that were there. And we had multiple teams of people there. And probably the biggest contribution that we made to them is they had trying to get that wireless network in that building that's kind of built like a rump roast. We're engineers. We like square rooms and 90-degree angles and that kind of stuff. And that building doesn't have that. And one of the team members that I brought in from my network, I called and it wasn't our problem to fix. It was just that it was just getting down to the Killers were the first people in that stadium. And then the second act was Justin Timberlake. And panic is starting to ensue because you don't want Justin Timberlake there. And then we have a Beyonce Super Bowl moment where they had the Super Bowl and the power went out. Yeah, and nobody wants their name associated with that. Everybody's like, oh God, we can't have that happen. And that's everybody that's there. And you're talking about a massive amount of project managers.
Right.
And they came up and started ideating in a room with everybody. And there were dead spots. This is not working. This is not working. And finally, after a lot of debate and trial and errors and just a million things going on, it was finally decided that the wireless access points, which are always up in the ceiling, they actually are built into the handrails. It took a lot of the team effort to do that. The idea to do it, to get it down on the ground, because that's never been done. Right. And you have to put it where people can't touch it or destroy it or dismantle it. People like to touch things. And but finally it went into the handrails, which even if you don't know anything about physics or any of that other stuff, it's down where you are. So as opposed to the time it takes it from that ceiling to get down to where the people are, it's right down where the people are. So it's in the bowl. And inadvertently it ended up, and there's Johnson Controls did a fantastic write-up on it, and naming us and the company that came in to actually get the work done of making that happen, because at that time when we built that was the fastest stadium in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It had never been done where the stuff was down at the bottom. The part I take away from that is that's why you want diversity. You want it because it wasn't just the fact that we were minority or whatever. It was the fact that we were there. We were at the table. Abaxent had relationships that were diverse, other than the people who were physically there. And we had a network where we could pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we're running into this problem, and it's not even our problem to fix, but you've done stadiums. Can you help? And the people that came up said, sure, we owe you a favor. So we'll be more than happy to come up here and look at that. Yeah. So what that is that's the power of the network. That's the power of the team, right? And the team is there again. This is what they do. They do good things and they innovate at those things, and they're great at it. And as a result, it fixed a problem that everybody's staring into the future going, we're going to get this arena filled up with all these people who come to see Justin Timberlake, and you're not going to be able to take a selfie or send, do Twitter, do Facebook, do all of this stuff. None of that's going to happen. And that
Right.
was
And that's
not,
gonna
yeah, nobody wanted that.
nobody wants to frustrate
No one wanted
whatever many people. No
Right,
way. No
right,
way.
right. So yeah, but that was our first construction job.
Yeah.
It should have been about $250,000 worth to start. We ended up probably at somewhere around 16 to 18 million when we finished.
Holy cow.
So it was a huge impact on the business. It was a
Right.
great impact on people that we had done some community training with that
Mm-hmm.
got interested in doing the type of work that they were doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it helped my female foreman that was there because she went on to get a really great job uh, after that. So that whole project was a win-win. Um, my prime vendor that I work with, we've gone on to do multiple construction projects. We're in the middle of a larger one right now that's out in Minot, North Dakota. Yay!
Mm.
So, so which is great, and that one actually is going to be bigger than what we did at the Fiserv Farm because it's a
Awesome.
hospital build.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more stress, but it's actually not a lot more stress because when you've got major talent coming to town and a
Mm-hmm.
massive amount of people coming to see that person, that building cannot go down.
Right.
They cannot
Right.
not have their Wi-Fi. They cannot, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you manage then? Are you taking like one project at a time or does it depend? Right. Because I would imagine even the capacity of your team, your immediate team, like how do you flex that
Well, my immediate
capacity?
team, my internal team is very small. And it's like the bridge of the enterprise. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows what it is they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
We can take on as many of those projects as we have delivery-based vendors.
Mm.
No, it's just that simple. So no, we have
Yeah.
multiple projects going on.
Yeah.
We have, but then we because we may have we'll have different vendors because we'll max out vendor A. So now we need to go to
Mm-hmm.
vendor B and C because they have either the same capacity or different capacity for the projects that we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of that's why we say we're the general contractor for IT because if we are there and we're uh, the architect can always go get a different plumber.
Right.
And we can
Right.
go get a different electrician and we can get, so
Mm-hmm.
we're only restrained by what's in the ecosystem itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you're making huge impact throughout the community, right? For a small business to make impact through the vendors, right? Through the community partners you're bringing in. So with that whole model, what for you is the most joyful part of this job or this
Besides
career or
finishing,
this
we're done.
bef-
Yay. We live. We still live.
we survived. We
We
survived.
survived. We all hug and go drinking. Uh, so I mean, it's. I think the joyful part is employing folks and bringing other opportunities to the partners that we work with. A
Mhm.
lot of them seek us out because we're the DE and I factor, right? We're diverse
Mhm.
and we're female and that kind of stuff. But after they've done one project with us, they're part of the team
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
understand that piece has no, it's not really that big of a deal. And then we can
Yeah.
work on other things and we can progress and work through a lot of other projects. Because what we bring to them is not just the DE and I factor. We bring to them the ability to go large.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. To
We give
scale.
them more,
Yeah.
yeah, the scale. We give them more
Mhm.
capability than they currently have in house.
Yeah.
And it's not just capability of the scaling, but it's also capability of bringing in other product sets.
Yeah.
We work with vendors. All of our vendors have finite product sets. So if the customer all of a sudden jumps up because they saw something somewhere, we used to call that the airplane syndrome. The CEO
Okay.
or the CXX somebody gets on a plane, reads that stupid Skyline magazine, and they read some article and come back and say, "Oh, we should be doing this."
Mhm.
Well, not really, but now they want to talk about it and see it. And the vendor they're working with doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So we may
Yeah.
get the call, can you help us do that if we need to do that?
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah.
That's Cool.
So we
Yeah.
give our vendors, so what we bring to them is not just the DE&I piece that's sitting on people's ESG files and all these things they're talking about.
Hmm.
We bring them extended capability.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the model because it's it's simpler. I mean, I know your projects are complex, but it's simple to understand, right? From the outside world. I know you mentioned that it's sometimes hard to describe,
It's
but
it, it's hard to describe because what happens is everybody from the bank to my customers to whoever we deal with, they go,
yeah.
huh? They're used to
Yeah.
the traditional model of
Yeah.
you have a company, you hire people, they're all employees. This is what you do, and you have 10 employees or 100 or 2,000, and that's not the forward model because we can't survive there.
Right. Right.
Because the
Mhm.
customer can't survive there because they're stuck with getting whatever you happen to have.
Mhm.
Regardless of
Mhm.
what your physical size is of a company, they're stuck with what you have and what you want to sell because you've chosen, those 200 products out of the 5,000.
Yeah.
But something
Yeah.
else may be a better mix for them or a better
Mhm.
match for them, and they're not getting to see that, or experience that, or pay for that, or even ingest that to give them competitive advantage.
Mhm. 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 Well, I just looked at the time and I
Oh,
have to end the podcast. But and I know you have to go for wine, which sounds delightful and I wish I was joining you to be
next time,
honest.
next time.
Next time. But why don't you share with our listeners today a little bit of how they can find you and your business if they have some of the same problems that you were describing in the technology world?
Well, if they want to either have us help them or they want to partner with us, we
Hmm.
invite both. We're easy. We're Abaxent, which most people have a hard time spelling and they can't, not sure what to say. It's ABAXENT.com or it's Abaxent-global.com. Either one works. Um, and I'm pretty easy because I'm on LinkedIn. That's the easiest
Hmm.
way. There's not that many Adonicas on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
Adonica and Randall, and I'm on LinkedIn. So pretty easy to find, and we've pretty much been in the same place for the last 18 years. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Maybe one more question. What
Yes.
advice do you have? Because I can't stop talking to you. So Hannah's going to be like, we're just going to go over. What advice would you have to especially girls and women in the STEM arena? Because as you said earlier, it's not moving as fast. That needle's
Yeah.
not moving as fast. What advice, what parting advice would you have for women and girls in STEM?
I would say probably the best one is stop asking for permission.
Mm,
You don't need permission to do something that you're interested in doing and to follow
mhm,
that. It's not, the barrier is you're waiting to ask permission for somebody to let you do something. Never been, I have followed my grandmother's rule through life, which is you do not need to ask for permission to do
mhm,
anything that makes sense or that's beneficial or it's helping other people or whatever. Why are you doing that? I don't have to have permission to be in this engineering school. I don't have to have permission to, work with this group of people or learn this thing or be in this place. I don't
mhm,
need somebody else's permission to do that. And I would probably say I am often the lone minority in a room, in a sea of a couple of hundred people. I don't need
mhm,
permission to be there.
mhm,
My skill and what I know and what I'm good at gives me permission to be in that room. More
mhm.
so, most cases, than a considerable amount of other people who are in the room. That's why
Mhm.
you stop asking permission because we always somehow, as women, think we're less than.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
world doesn't move forward without us,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
We're the brilliant light. So we have to remember that. And you just have to look at something and kind of lock onto that, like I did with the Star Trek stuff, and say, I can do that. I can be that. And I don't have to ask permission to get to that point. Just do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
The old Nike slogan, right? Just do it.
Mhm. Well, thank you for the brilliant light that you have brought to our area, especially super grateful for your time and even just that closing, because I think that that is advice that we, especially women, need all the time.
Yep,
And sometimes I think men need it as well,
they do.
but we declare it. We declare it probably a lot faster. But
That's
thank
right.
you for all of your contributions, and I look forward to scheduling wine with you at some point.
Yes, we are scheduling live.
Sounds
Yay.
good.
All right,
All right.
thanks for
Thank you
having me,
so
guys.
much.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we have. Are there inspirational women leaders in your life? Recommend them for this podcast by emailing me at jcollins@knot-magic.com and telling me why they're the perfect person to be featured. And please leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts to help us share these amazing women with others.